Have you ever thought of using plant medicine as a tool for healing? Sometimes the unknown and having this uncertainty can leave us on the fence about whether or not something's right for us. I'm going to share with you guys my experience with plant medicines. Hopefully by the end of this video, it'll make it a little more clear. In 2013, I lost my mom to cancer, and it was like I had this sudden spiritual awakening. I looked within and I seen all this pain, and after 13 months of evaluating all this, I came to the conclusion that healing was not possible, and the only way to find peace in this life was to leave it. And that's when I tried to, and if it wasn't for Archangel Michael appearing, I wouldn't be here. And after a 9-month-long drinking bender, I came to the conclusion that I needed to seek guidance and help. The traditional method of working with counselors and popping pills was not something that resonated with me. So in 2015, I found myself surrounded with shamans and energy healers and working with plant medicine. I started working with this Reiki healer who started telling me about mushrooms and the benefits they have in regards to healing and opening up your heart. At the time, I was 35 years old and had never touched mushrooms, but after she convinced me about the benefits to using them, I found myself in my first mushroom ceremony. Not only did I realize that our soul's not just contained within our body, that it's actually an energetic bubble that's all around us. My heart opened up in ways that are hard to describe. I call it my cloud phase, because after that experience, I started pulling off the road to take pictures of sunsets and clouds, and it was like I seen the beauty of Mother Nature right in front of me for the very first time. I continued working with this woman, having mushroom ceremony after mushroom ceremony. I remember one time I wiggled my toe on the ground and I could feel it in my head, and I was shown that our whole body is connected. It's like an ecosystem working together. At the time, it was roughly a year since I had met Archangel Michael, and I'd heard nothing, no more visitations, and in a way I felt abandoned. And after using mushrooms so many times, I became comfortable using them myself. And I came across this video where this guy was talking about how your intention before using them is of the utmost importance. So I thought to myself, all right, Archangel Michael, I'm gonna do a ceremony this coming Friday. It was a Monday, and I'm going to connect with you. Friday rolls around, I do a dose of mushrooms, and after 45 minutes of meditating and going within, I felt this powerful urge to open up my eyes. And when I did, this large quartz crystal that was 2 feet away from me, when I opened up my eyes, Archangel Michael from head to toe was standing in it, and he was holding a round shield with a sword, and he was doing like a marching pose. And I remember leaning forward, staring at this image of Archangel Michael in this crystal, and I rubbed my eyes and I'm like, am I really seeing this? And this pulse wave came from this crystal that was so strong that not only did I think my eardrums had burst, but I could feel my ears physically shaking. And so I thought to myself, I was like, okay, I'm not going to question if I'm seeing this. I remember just being taken back by the magnificence of his hair. It was super long, went flowing down his back. You know, he looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, super jacked. And his wings were just absolutely magnificent. Remember, that was the one thing I couldn't stop staring at. His wings were just glowing, and they started to fold around his body. He sent this wave of Christ conscious energy, and my body just filled with ecstasy. And the next thing I knew, my chest collapsed into my lap. My head was on my knees and my hands were on the ground, and I was just so overcome with the feeling of ecstasy that I couldn't move. And after some time had passed, I sat back up only to see Archangel Michael was still there marching, and his wings folded around him once again, and this wave of Christ conscious energy just overtook me. Found myself in the same position, and again, after some time had passed, I sat back up and I was surprised to see that he was still there. And this exact same experience happened for the third time. So I continued working with mushrooms, and it wasn't until 2016 that I would meet this shaman who was into ayahuasca ceremonies. I found myself in my first ever ayahuasca ceremony. I had half a shot, and that was enough for me. I didn't have any crazy experiences other than I felt this presence that was standing right in front of me. And at the time I didn't realize this, but this was the soul of ayahuasca. And I could feel this poke on my shoulder to the point where it physically moved back. And I was told by the shaman that was the spirit of ayahuasca. I remember going home that morning, and it was like my life had completely changed. I had this love for myself that I never experienced before. I threw out my cigars and I quit smoking for a couple years because the idea of putting anything negative in my body just didn't make any sense. It wasn't until 2020, 4 years later, that I'd be called back to my next ayahuasca ceremony. You know, I've done 4 to date, but this next one was absolutely life-changing. And after 2 full shots, you know, to say I went to Funky Town would be an understatement. I started traveling through this energetic tube, and after what felt like 45 minutes, I found myself just engulfed in unconditional love. It was like I was looking around just in awe of this feeling that I was experiencing. And after some time, I said to the spirit of ayahuasca, "Thank you for bringing this love to me." And I heard her say, "I did not bring any love to you. I simply showed you the love you have contained within your heart." When she said this, you know, I was in energetic form, but I could feel my physical body wanting to cry because it was like I had all this love in my heart that I never experienced before. And after traveling back through this tube, when I came to my body, it felt like I was electricity. And that's when Archangel Raphael made his presence known to me. I started seeing all these green flashing lights, and he started sending me these, like, what I like to call love bombs. And one of the rules in an ayahuasca ceremony is try not to touch your neighbor or make sounds out loud. But when these love bombs hit my chest, I was just overcome with ecstasy to the point where I couldn't help but to moan out loud. I experienced a visitation from the soul of my mom, and I just received some healing that I really needed to experience. Ayahuasca is something that if you take, it's going to work with you weeks or months, even years afterwards. It's going to bring up things for healing, and it just opens up your heart in a way that is really unimaginable. I did a DMT session with a shaman. After like a 10-second hit of this stuff, I was surrounded in this darkness that was just so dark that it was eerie, and my throat started closing up. It was almost impossible to breathe, and it got to the point where I thought I was actually going to die, and I had to calm myself down. I found myself just again encompassed in this darkness, and it was as if I was facing my shadow side. I remember swaying back and forth with my back on the wall, making these grunting sounds. Eventually, I felt the energy of Jesus come in. This big swooshing energy came in and just cleared all this negativity from me. I also had a Campbell warrior session with a woman shaman. That, if you don't know, is where they take a hot rod and break your skin and then administer frog poison. So I go for one of these Campbell warrior sessions, and after some meditating and getting prepared, she started putting this hot rod up my back and administering this frog poison. And I remember the first thing that I felt again was it felt like my throat had turned into a log, and it was almost painful to swallow. And I started shaking, and it felt like every single pore in my body had opened up because I was completely drenched. Like I just had all my clothes on in the shower. And sure enough, I start vomiting into this bucket. This woman takes the bucket and she's looking at my vomit and she's like, "Oh, you just cleared ancestral trauma. You just cleared parasites from, like, energetic parasites from your family bloodline." I remember after the first session, the facilitator went into the washroom, and I was looking at the window asking myself if I should just jump out and run away. It was that intense. The idea of doing 2 more sessions back to back was so frustrating that I actually started to get mad at myself. Like, who's making the decisions? Like, how did I find myself here? The very next day, I got to experience just how powerful it actually was. My son was dropped off, and he said to me, he's like, "Daddy, I don't know what's come over me. I'm just so happy for no reason." My dad came up to me and he's like, "I don't know what's come over me." He's like, "I used to be full of anxiety and felt like I always have to be doing something, and now I just feel so calm and peaceful." This was a sure sign to me that the things that I'd gone through, the torture I'd gone through, was actually worth it. What I've come to realize is that plant medicine is a fantastic tool for healing. If you're feeling called, I highly recommend it. If you'd like to hear about all my experiences in detail, I have a biography out called Finding Me. It's available on my website. I'm also offering a healing service all done remotely. I have a brand new custom crystal jewelry line out. It's all available on my website, ashleysamborski.com. Links in the bio, it'll take you right there. Hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.